Usually we do college football and NFL predictions, but I think since we're right in the thick of MLB playoffs, just had a fantastic 3-day stretch of wildcard games. Tomorrow starts the NL and ALDS. We got to talk some ball first. And we got to talk some diamond. What was your biggest takeaway from last night? Because mine, I think we have to start with Cam Schlittler.
We have to. Shay and I both have heard about Cam Schlittler. Going into this Game 3, I was confident in Cam Schlittler, but I was confident because of watching box scores. I never actually watched this guy pitch. And oh my goodness, 100 with sink, locating everything, grew up a Red Sox fan, and now just taking it to him. That's one of the best starts in postseason history. And he did it against the rival as a rookie.
Only MLB pitcher in postseason history with 8 or more shutout innings, 12 or more strikeouts, and no walks allowed. And he did it as a rookie in his first postseason start in an elimination game against your fiercest rivals. It does not get better than that. They win 4-0. He probably could have gone the entire game, complete game shutout.
No doubt.
It wasn't like, okay, this is round 1. We obviously need you now for more rounds, more outings, just like that. I was very impressed. I mean, he's a big guy. I figured he threw hard, but I didn't think he was going to come out the gates throwing 100, 101 like that. It was incredible. And you know how Lance Lynn, when he pitched, it would be the four seam, and it would be the sinker, and it would be the cutter, and he would just mix them interchangeably like that. Mm-hmm. And he'd throw like a variation of the fastball 80% of the time or whatever. He's kind of like that. However, Lance Lynn didn't throw 100. Yeah. And so his four seam is like it's got run. It's got great ride, and it runs away from left-handed hitters. His two seam, or sinker, obviously the exact opposite when it's dropping and going away from left-handed hitters or in on the hands of right-handed hitters. And then the cutter, he hardly loses any velocity. He's got great movement horizontally across the other way. It was like 96 mile per hour cutter with way more movement the other way. So and then that's not even counting if you have your braking stuff working for you. So I was very impressed. I was not familiar on that kind of level. And his savant said he averaged 98 with the heater this year. So he was obviously juiced up in that kind of environment. A couple ticks faster than that. Very impressed with him. Connolly early wasn't bad at all.
No.
The rookie for the Red Sox. We talked about if Alex Cora in the Game 2 situation on Wednesday is going to pull Brian Bayo that early into a ball game to try to win, then you got to pull Connolly early, even earlier the next day. And he didn't do it.
No.
They didn't even have a mound visit. And he allowed Connolly early just to dig himself farther and farther into this hole, and then it was not savable.
His decisions didn't align from day to day, and that was the biggest issue that Shay and I had. One day you'll pull Brian Bayo. For me, that says, okay, we're going to win this baseball game because Brian Bayo, at 20-odd pitches, doesn't have it today. So we're going to try and go win that. And then later in the game, they have lefty row coming up. They're tied, and they keep Whitlock in and don't go to Chapman. So that doesn't make sense there. And then the day after, you leave Connolly early in and don't make a move quickly. Alex Cora is known as being one of the better managers in the league. Top 10 in any list. But he wasn't good enough at all against the Yankees. His split decision-making wasn't good enough. As I mentioned, his decisions didn't align with one another, and that would be the most frustrating thing if I was a Red Sox fan. It was, well, why can't Bayo then pitch the next day? He essentially threw a bullpen. He threw a bullpen.
Yeah.
Just on the field.
Especially when you have the injury of Giolito hanging over the head, too.
Yeah.
Like, we knew this was going to be troublesome in Game 3 because of the Giolito injury news back on Monday. And so that made us very surprised when they pulled Bayo as quickly as they did. Because, Bayo's one of those pitchers where he's either very sharp or not sharp at all.
Yep.
But he was kind of in the middle ground. It's not like he was imploding on Wednesday and they pulled him because they had to. It was a strategic decision to be aggressive, to go to the bullpen to try to win Game 2, and then it kind of fell apart on him. He didn't align managerial like you were talking about the rest of that game, and then it didn't obviously align yesterday, leaving Connolly early in for that long. Earlier in the day, the Cubs locked up their playoff spot. By the way, Yankees' first team in this new wild card 3-game series history to lose Game 1 and then win out.
It
win the series.
It was ultra impressive, and apologies. Right now, I am looking to fix it and go live because for whatever reason we didn't go live, but we're still recording. But yeah, both of those series were toss-ups, especially the Cubs-Brewers one. And that Cubs game yesterday the Cubs-Brewers, apologies. The Cubs-Padres one, but for the Cubs, they they both played the same brand of baseball, and the Cubs just did it a little better. It was a lack of offense. It was whose bullpen can come to play. And in the case of the San Diego Padres, their offense was simply not good enough at any point. It just had to be better.
Yeah, and Mike Schilt, speaking of aggressive managerial decisions, Yu Darvish got the early hook. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with Michael King. He had a couple starts in a row. He was on normal rest. He only threw about 40, 50 pitches in his last start. He was obviously available because he came out of the bullpen for 1 inning. But first of all, I was surprised he only went 1 inning because that bullpen was stretched thin towards the end of the game. But also, why was he not the starter? Yu Darvish, he's the veteran. He's had great postseason starts in the past. He's also been terrible in elimination games in the past. He had been up and down this year with injury stuff and inconsistencies, and I was very surprised Michael King was not the Game 3 starter yesterday. They go with Yu. That falls apart early on. Second inning, Cubs are trying to break the game open. They almost do. A huge double play gets them out of it. Schilt goes to the bullpen early on with Estrada. In that inning, he walks in a run that makes it 2-0, but then he gets out of it. And then you settle things down. The bullpen does its thing for the next 5 innings. The Cubs were in control of that game the entire day, but you settle things down, you give your offense a chance to win. And again, they don't show up. And again, we're talking about apathy. We're talking about lack of care. Do they even want it? The game, the bottom of the first opened up with a Michael Busch little soft tapper single into right field, and he was incredibly juiced. Like, it looked like he just hit a walk-off single. And meanwhile, you have Tatis and Machado going a combined 2 for 22 in the series. Tatis is swinging and missing at everything, and he's not even showing any emotion, not any frustration. It didn't look like the superstars for San Diego wanted it yesterday, and that's exactly what we were talking about in the Game 1 defeat, where they couldn't score any runs either. Top of the ninth, they're trying to tie things up, make things interesting. That call on Alexander Bogaerts, that's when we finally saw emotion. That was a terrible call. And it really changes the complexion of that inning because you would have had bases loaded, nobody out. The soft tapper would have scored a run because Shaw would have had to go to first, would have scored a run, or if he goes home there, he would have been safe because he bobbled. And then the fly out to end the game would have been a sac fly to tie the game instead. So that call was really impactful just because of when it happened. But also, San Diego did no favors for themselves with their lackluster offensive performance this series.
No, not at all. We should be going live right now. I will be checking on my phone periodically. But, yeah, apologies for that little technical difficulty, but we're ready to go. The Padres, throughout the last couple of years, it's been A.J. Preller pushing everything in. And now we're going to see a different era of San Diego where they're still going to be a good team, but they're not going to have the resources to do what they've done the last couple of seasons. Shay and I went down a little Fangraphs rabbit hole last night.
In a really bad spot.
And it can't be any worse.
They're in a really bad spot.
When you think about how long they're paying Manny Machado, how long they're paying Xander Bogaerts. Both aging players. We already see a decline in Manny Machado's game. A couple of years ago, he wasn't even playing defense out of nowhere. And now he's back at third.
Yep.
But it is a nightmarish scenario. And the only way they can get out of it with how bad their farm system is having somebody take on the majority of a contract like a Manny Machado. And who's would do that right now? Who would do that?
They have, the year is 2025 right now, and 2031, that's 6 years from now, they already have $125 million locked up in payroll with 4 players. It's Jackson Merrill, which with how he played this year again, with how he played in this series, that's a great player. That might be one of your cornerstones, depending on what happens with these other guys I'm going to name. But Merrill, Machado, Bogaerts, and Tatis, 4 players, already have combined $125 million in payroll locked up in 2031. You're going to be paying a 40-something-year-old Machado $40 million a year. You're going to be paying a 40-something-year-old Bogaerts $25 million a year. They are in contract prison. They are locked up with terrible contracts. And yes, we applauded Preller for what he did because he wants to win. Like you said, he pushes all the chips in and year out at the deadline in the offseason. It's a San Diego team that was never like that at all. Now they are. We applaud that in the current landscape of modern baseball. But then when you fail like this, when the team on the field fails like this, they can't score a run and they get bounced early in the playoffs again, then we got to start having the long-term conversations. And that farm system that you could hang your hat on a few years ago, completely gone because they traded it all away. Leo DeVries is no longer with the organization. They're going to have to figure some things out. They're going to have to. I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't know what they're going to do.
They always draft well. That's a positive for San Diego. They draft well, and that's how they can revamp the farm system. But now, Shay, we're going from a window of a championship to looking 3 or 4 years down the road where you can compete again. And that is why trading a Fernando Tatis Jr. is not off the table. It's not, because he's in his prime. And think about the assets you can get back from that in return.
You would have to think about that for MLB-ready guys because of the money that's already allocated, which is a bad thing too. The way they got Nick Pivetta this year, where he turned into their best starting pitcher, their most consistent, healthy, best starting pitcher. He was the game one guy. It was incredible this year. ERA under 3, great stuff. They got him late in the offseason for probably not as much money as he's going to be worth. They have to really focus and try to do that with multiple guys because that's the contracts they're going to have to need to succeed.
Yes, it is really going to show the true colors of A.J. Preller and how good he is at this job. Because he's been thrown a tough hand for almost the first time. He's had the luxury of, during Peter Seidler unfortunately passing away.
Exactly what I was going to say.
He wanted to go all in then.
You don't have that anymore.
You don't. Now you have to be a normal GM. You have to take a step back. And San Diego is not a big market. It's not. They sell out every night, but it's not like they have the luxury of a Los Angeles Dodgers with multiple billionaires in their ownership group. So it's a tough spot, and this was, I think, the most disappointing performance of the playoffs when you assess where they were just a couple months ago, the demise going into October, and then falling flat on their face for the second consecutive season. It just can't happen.
Yeah, and I think it's not like how San Diego's been the last couple of years where they're losing a ton of players. They're going to be down Cease. They're going to be down Luis Ariz. Not sure if those are the worst subtractions ever.
Definitely not.
Probably kicking yourself a little bit that you didn't trade them when you could have, but also you're trying to win, You're trying to win. And I think O'Hearn is also going to be gone, so it's not like they're going to lose half the roster. They're going to have really the entire bullpen back, which is great.
Yep.
And they're going to have to fill in some starting rotation spots, hope they can get healthy. I mean, Musgrove, I don't know if he's ever healthy, but hope for that. Maybe JP Sears can be something, which they also got in that trade. And then the lineup is going to be relatively untouched. So it is a team that you got to get better depth. Their bench was awful. I mean, you had the lefty row and you were pinch hitting Jose Iglesias and Bryce Johnson in certain spots. So the depth's got to be better, but it is a team where you can add around the margins and be right back. It's just, is this performance, which we saw last year and now this year, offensively going to rear its ugly head again? Because nobody in the front office can predict that.
They've put the necessary product on the field with Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado. You have to let Luis Ariz walk. That's step one, because he hasn't shown nearly enough value.
I'm very interested in what kind of contract he gets.
I am too, because so many people, and I don't even know if they're necessarily wrong, call him one of the most overrated players in the league. And it's just because, aside from the batting average and aside from not punching out, he doesn't do anything particularly great. Has no power.
You have to stick him at first base just to hide him.
Yeah, the defense isn't good enough, and he's actually become a decent first baseman. But he's the first guy I look at in this revamped Padres team that we're going to see in 2026 that will no longer be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, and they're not going to be able to re-sign guys at all. Like, I think Cease and Ariz are guaranteed walks because they'll get more money than San Diego can actually give them. I mean, Ariz is a guy that struck out the fewest times in the MLB season since Tony Gwynn. Like, he's got, in that realm of hitting, he is the best in the league.
Yes.
But the way everything else works with his game, it's just, it really does drag him down to that we should not be paying him if you're a fan of a team. So, And then the morning game was the Detroit Tigers after Cleveland put up a 5-spot at the end of Game 2 to win that game. Detroit, all of a sudden, an offensive explosion with 4-run inning in the 6th, and they get it, or in the 7th, and they get it done at Cleveland to win that game. And so I thought it was going to be more of the same, where the Game 1 winners just figure out a way to do it. We got more Game 3s this year, but Detroit wins on the road, Chicago won, and then New York actually bucked the trend. But this Tigers team I'm still not high on. I think these were probably two of the three worst teams in the playoffs, battling out in the first round, and so one of them obviously had to advance. It ends up being the Tigers. I don't give them a shot in the Seattle series. I mean, Mariners, no matter who they choose to start in Game 2, have a chance to steal the Tarek game just because Detroit's not going to be able to hit any of their guys either. So it's like who scores a run first probably, and that ball game wins. And so if you can't win the Tarek game, then again, the Tigers are not going to win a series.
Yeah, I'm on the Mariners as well to beat the Tigers rather handedly. It was a good job winning the Tarek start. That's what they do. And then to come through yesterday with an offensive explosion from a Dylan Dingler, Riley Green had a big hit. That is something that kind of came out of nowhere. But AJ Hinch keeps doing his thing. When he's presented with a winnable task, he's going to be the winner of that series. I don't think playing the Mariners on the road is a winnable task with the roster he has, but he's probably going to push them farther than anyone would expect. That series could go 4 games or 5 because it's the Tarek start. You have a chance in that one if you can win 2-1. But the offense is not nearly good enough, and they didn't get a number 2 at the deadline. Those are the 2 things that they left unchecked. They said Chris Paddock he'll suffice. He'll do. Zach Gallen was there. A lot of other guys were there that they could have gone and got, and Shay and I might have a different conversation about Detroit. Because if you're having a pitching battle and you're on the road in Seattle, a place that's tough to hit, if you have the necessary starting pitching to go toe-to-toe, anything can happen. They don't after Tarek Skubal.
This would have been fun if it was like Tarek, Zach Gallen to start out the series. And then you have Mize and Flaherty afterwards.
Yeah.
They're going to go bullpen game like they did last postseason. I'm not sure if they're just saying that and it's actually going to be Cater Montero because he was actually really good in September. But I mean, I assume it'll be like Montero as like a piggyback guy or a first time through the order guy. It's just they don't have the pitching other than Tarek to win as a team that's built on pitching. And so the offense isn't good enough to pick up the slack in that category. So I have Seattle as well. LA and Philadelphia, talked about it on Monday. That's going to be a fantastic series.
Oh, yeah.
If it actually came to fruition, it does. I'm worried. I was worried about one of the Phillies starters having a blow-up start without Zach Wheeler leading the bunch. It's going to be Chris Sanchez. It's going to be the other lefties, Ranger and Jesus. And not sure where Nola's going to be slotted into this, but that'll be interesting to see. He struggled this year right after the big contract. So I have LA coming out of this, but in the grand scheme of things, I think Philly is a team that is better suited to win a World Series than the Dodgers are just because of how bad the bullpen is for the Dodgers. And so I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Phillies, using their home field advantage, take this one in 5 games. But again, this is a series that we should get more than 5 games out of.
Yes, no doubt. It should be a 7-game series. And that's the biggest storyline for me going into this one is the Dodgers have to go to Citizens Bank Park. Yeah. That place is the most hostile environment in Major League Baseball. It's so tough to go there. And this is Shohei Ohtani's first playoff start. Yes, he has the electric stuff, but what is he made of? He's been a performer at the dish in those big-time moments. In the World Series, he crumbled just a bit at the plate. But he hasn't seen anything like this on the mound at any point in his career. And I'll be extremely intrigued to see how he operates, how Dave Roberts and the rest of this team operate when managing the ball game, how deep he goes. I know Tyler Glasnow could be available, but this series is going to be absolutely fabulous. Both teams have a juggernaut singular player on offense. Shohei Ohtani with the Dodgers, Kyle Schwarber having a career year with Philadelphia. All of these games, if you're a baseball fan, even if you're not, this is the best series of the DS, and it's going to be fabulous.
And the other NLDS is going to be really fun too. Cubs, Brewers, divisional opponents going at it, just like we just saw with the Yankees and Red Sox, and we're going to see that in the AL with the Yankees and Blue Jays too. So that's cool to have this early on in the playoffs. But I'm not sure who the Cubs will send out to face off against Freddie Peralta, and then I'm not sure what the Brewers are going to try to do pitching-wise after the Freddie Peralta start. Craig Counsell just showed his pitching plan in 3 games against San Diego. It's throw everything. We have starting rotation-wise and bullpen at the wall. See what sticks. I mean, Tyon had a great start yesterday, but he's pulled after 4 innings. Like, Counsell's just not going to allow any of his pitchers, no matter who they are, no matter if they're starters, relievers, in between, whatever, go more than facing like 10 guys in a game. And it's worked so far through 3 games against San Diego. That'll be Milwaukee's turn to try to counter that offensively. We'll see what they got, but I don't know if that's sustainable for the Cubs. I mean, I hope it's not sustainable for the Cubs. So it's really two teams where I'm concerned about their pitching.
Yeah, completely fair. Freddie Peralta and the Brewers have to win Game 1.
They do.
If they win Game 1, they're in a good spot just because they're at home. They've been a wagon there. They've been so good.
Fangraphs thinks it's going to be
season.
Colin Ray. Fangraphs thinks it's going to be Colin Ray versus Freddie Peralta.
That should be
It's got to be
standard.
It's got to be a Game 1 home win.
And Colin Ray was a Brewer.
That's
so
true.
He's going back to Milwaukee. Craig Counsell's going back to Milwaukee. That's so fun. They're going to just let him hear it because every time he's been back there during the regular season, they've let him hear it. But these are two elite managers, great game plans. The Brewers got to prove it. I'm really high on them going all the way to win the World Series, but they've got to prove it, as Shay continues to mention. And this is the easiest draw they possibly could have got. They don't have to play the Phillies. They don't have to play the Dodgers. They get the Cubs.
Yep.
You got to make the CS. If the Brewers lose this series, serious conversations will be had again, and nobody, regardless of what that roster looks like, will be able to trust them.
Yeah.
They won't.
I got to see. I'm very curious to see how the back end of that lineup, back half of that lineup performs, because Yelich is very capable of getting you big hits and big moments. William Contreras and Jackson Chourio, great hitters. What are the Sal Freliks, the Bryce Terangs, the Blake Perkins, the Joey Ortizes of the world going to give you if those guys set the table in front of them? Are they going to be able to drive them home? Are they going to be able to set the table late in games, back half of the lineup, for the top dogs in that lineup to deliver? It's just I'm very nervous about Milwaukee's back half of the lineup. Chicago's offense is great. They've got great lineup depth. I mean, with the seasons that Michael Busch has had, and with the seasons that who Carson Kelly has had as the catcher position, he had a huge home run in Game 1. I mean, Pete Crow Armstrong might have just figured it out with a 3-hit day yesterday. It's just that lineup depth. You have Dansby Swanson, a World Series champion, hitting 8th in the lineup. So the lineup discrepancy, I think, is real in this series. Milwaukee's going to have to beat them how they always beat teams, is with pitching and defense and fundamental baseball. I think the big key, not only to win that Game 1, but Freddie Peralta, can you give the team length?
Yeah.
Because that's always, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, but one of the gripes has always been, usually you're going to get 5 innings out of him. He needs to go more than 5 innings. We talked about how important that first start for Tarek going so deep into the ball game and excelling. It really almost helped the Red Sox. Cora was able to use every bullpen arm imaginable in Game 2 because of how much length Crochet gave them in Game 1. They need that from Freddie Peralta, because if you get a world where, like, Freddie Peralta has a 5-inning, 1-run or 2 runs allowed start, and you got to use 4 bullpen arms after that, then are you hoping Quinn Priester gives you length the next day? And then is Robert Gasser going to give you length the next day? It's just, I think the domino effect could be dangerous for them bullpen-wise if Freddie Peralta doesn't give you a strong ace caliber start in Game 1.
Absolutely. Both of these pitching staffs have a lot of question marks, a lot. So when you're stacking that up, the Cubs have a better offense, absolutely, but with the Brewers being at home and with how they've pitched during the regular season, regardless of the personnel, there really is no excuse to not win this series.
And then Yankees, Blue Jays. It's going to be Gosman Game 1 for the Blue Jays at home. That's another team that's been excellent at home. Rogers Center's a great environment as well.
Oh, yeah.
In the playoffs. Yankees, their Fangraphs thinks it's Luis Gil. Last year's Rookie of the Year winner. Has been hurt most of this year with a lat injury, but came back about a month and a half ago. We'll see what he can offer in Game 1. But this Yankees lineup maybe started to get going. Crochet obviously neutralized him Game 1, but he does that to a lot of people. New York's going to have to score some runs in this series, and I think if they do, if they get 4 or 5 runs a game, they win the series pretty easily.
I agree. I'm really high on New York in this series, especially with what their starting pitching has shown. With a Rodon having a good start and then Cam Schlittler coming out of nowhere, and you have Max Fried. If their offense just does what it's been doing, they will handedly win, even though it's on the road. That Game 1 will be really interesting to see how Luis Gil does in the postseason. That's another game. I mentioned how the Brewers need to take Game 1. I think the Jays have to take Game 1.
Yeah.
If you lose Game 1, it looks quite grim, and that's kind of obvious when you look at the history of the sport in Game 1s. But especially here with how much depth the Yankees have as a starting rotation, and more depth they have in the lineup, it just, in turn, makes you trust New York more.
Toronto's been a team that their success this year has come because of their offense. It was a top 2, top 3 offense for most of the year. Without Bo Bichette, which I haven't heard a status report
I
on
have
him
not
yet.
either. He's been kind of quiet.
Without Bo Bichette, they have limped to the finish line a little bit. The Yankees almost came back and won the division from them. I'm not sure about their lineup because they got big seasons out of guys like Addison Barger and company. Alejandro Kirk had a great season. Is that kind of going to replicate in the playoffs? I'm not sure, especially with what we've seen from the Yankees pitching staff. So I think if we're asking what gives there, I think the Yankees pitching staff can have a better time limiting that Toronto offense. Has been very good, but in a small sample size like a series like this, I think that's where this is one for the Yankees. And then, yes, they only have to have 4 or 5 runs a game, and they win the series. So.
Absolutely.
So you have the Brewers obviously in that game, in that series. We both have the Yankees. We both have the Mariners. Who do you have in Dodgers, Phillies?
I've got the Phillies.
You got the Phillies.
But gosh, it really could go either way. I was really impressed with the Dodgers offense in round 1. They somehow just get production from Kike Hernandez needs to be studied. I don't understand how you can go from batting 205 in the regular season to being a really good playoff performer, like really good.
He's a riser.
He is a riser. And the Dodgers starting pitching is nails. It's much better than the Phillies in the current state. But I do trust Philly's home field advantage more and that bullpen. So that's kind of where that pick comes in. But it should go 5. I hope it goes 5 so we can
I need that
watch that
5.
elimination game.
That's going to be fun. I was obviously picked San Diego to win it all. That was more of like they were matched up against the team I hate most in the Cubs. I wanted them to win that series. And then I liked their draw with the Brewers the next series.
There was definitely a path.
And then I liked their path playing up. Dodgers are a Phillies team that probably just thinks they won the World Series after beating their respective opponents, whoever comes out. And then I've liked the National League's odds over the AL odds all season long. Mm-hmm. So it's like, all right, if Padres get through this, then I think they just keep getting through.
Right.
And I like their team too. And then I was doing some research. I was like, this offense was so bad during this series. And it was really a below-average offense. I looked, if you take the 162 sample size, yes, they had some blow-up moments, but it was a below-average offense for the year. And I was like, obviously below-average offenses don't win the World Series. So I was going back and I was looking at what do teams, taking their 162 sample sizes, offensively, pitching-wise, fielding-wise, what kind of teams win the World Series with those ranks? And if you take for the majority of the last 20 seasons, offenses are this benchmark, they're never below like the 12th best offense, and their pitching staff's never below like 8th in whip, whatever. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I looked and I narrowed it down to 4 teams that I think actually have a shot to win the World Series. And that was the Cubs, that was the Yankees, that was the Phillies, and that was the Mariners. So one from each of these series. So that's not saying I think all 4 of those teams are going to win their matchups, but I would be surprised if the Dodgers won the World Series. I would be surprised if the Brewers won the World Series based on those historical trends.
Yeah.
And it was really a Milwaukee offense thing, and it was a Dodgers bullpen thing.
The Brewers, if they do go on and win it all, not only would it be magical, but it would be playing an old brand of baseball and almost rewriting history.
Well, and there's obviously exceptions too, and it's been a long time since we've had those exceptions. We had that conversation a few weeks ago. When are we ever going to get back to a time where teams like the 2011 Cardinals, the 2010, 2012, 2014 Giants, even the 2015 Royals were winning World Series?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if we do get back to that, but if this was the year,
it'd be the
Brewers would be the team to have that. So yeah, I'm excited.
Really pumped. Saturday, especially, we're going to get into college football, but I think college football picked a good week to have a not so
especially when last weekend was an incredible slate.
Right. So now the gap, we watch MLB, and it's perfect.
It's great stuff. Let's get into college football though. The 9 a.m. slate. The only game I look at is Iowa State Cincinnati.
I noticed Cincinnati's favorite.
Iowa State down their top 2 cornerbacks, and for the season. So that's not just this affects the Cincinnati game on the road. This affects the entire season.
Just their outlook.
And so they are a 5-0 team, undefeated in Big 12 play. They started the year with the win over K-State in Ireland. They've since, people were thinking Arizona was going to beat them last week. Iowa State handled their business just fine. It really looks like a team that they do just enough to win. They beat Iowa. That's always a tough game between those two. But Cincinnati, went on the road to KU and beat them, and they have looked very good offensively, very, very good offensively since that first Nebraska game. And so I think when you couple the Cincinnati being at home, Sorsby is rocking right now with his receivers, paired with the Iowa State secondary issues and the injuries, that's why we're getting the spread like it is. Cincinnati is a 1.5-point favorite against a Iowa State team that is one of the Big 12 favorites right now.
I'm high on Cincinnati winning this weekend too. And you mentioned Sorsby, but when he has the ability to attack through the air and push the ball down the middle of the field, and then you combine that with not having your secondary healthy, it feels like it's a nightmarish scenario for the Cyclones going on the road when things are starting to spiral downwardly. And in a Big 12 that is relatively wide open, there's going to be some parity in matchups like this season where that home dog does end up winning.
Yeah.
And I feel like a similar situation for Arizona State is going on the road to Utah next weekend. That could be another game where, this is the ranked team and they're going against an unranked team that was good but is under, you know what I'm saying, and could ultimately flip the script. So I like Cincinnati.
I think, yes, the secondary is banged up, but the trenches are probably where this game is won or lost for Iowa State. They're going to have way more bulk, way more talent on the defensive line versus the Cincy O-line and vice versa. And so if they are getting pressure on Sorsby, he's not going to be able to throw downfield to any of the receivers, no matter if they're wide open or not.
Yeah.
So that's how Iowa State wins this game from a defensive side, to account for their secondary being so injured. You got to get to the quarterback. You got to harass Sorsby all day. If they can't do that, I think Cincinnati's got the offensive juice to win this game at home. But if Iowa State's defense on the front is good enough to make him not able to complete most of those throws, then I think Iowa State's just a far better team.
Yes.
And they'll get it done on the road, just like they've been getting it done. They've been doing just enough to win. Speaking of ASU, very similar stuff there. Then we go to the 12:30 slate. Texas, Florida. Texas on the road at Florida. I'm not high on Florida at all, but if one thing we've seen from the Gators is their defense has been great. And have we seen Arch Manning do anything against a good defense yet? No. He looked not good at all against Ohio State. He's really looked bad in other moments since then against far inferior opponents. I worry about Arch on the road again against another really good defense.
In the swamp.
And the environment is not going to be the same as at Iowa State because Florida is 1-3 and Billy Napier's back on the hot seat, but it is at the swamp. It's an SEC environment, and it's a team that, going into that Miami game, Florida was a 2-loss team, but they had only allowed 2 touchdowns. This is a team that was not losing games. They haven't lost games because of their defense. And so this is a great, great test to see if Arch Manning has actually figured something out, because this will be a defense that really tests him.
What do they have on the spread for Texas, Florida?
Texas, 5.5-point favorites on the road.
So I don't have enough in me to pick Florida to win the football game, but I would like them at plus 5.5.
This could be an ugly, close game.
It's going to be real close. You mentioned how Arch Manning's going to have to come through in a big moment. We have not seen that yet. I'm still high on Arch as an overall quarterback, but yes, there's going to be growing pains in your first year starting in the SEC. These aren't just your average places you're going to play. They're hostile environments, especially Florida, when their number one strength is their defense. So I still have Texas winning this game. They're still a top 10 team in the country. They have so many good players at the skill positions. Defense is good. But when it comes down to winning in blowout fashion or by multiple scores on the road at Florida,
I don't see it either.
I don't see it yet. That might be something that we see later down the road once this team is fully developed, because they still have that high of a ceiling.
Well, if I do see that, then I change my tune. But Arch hasn't shown anything. Flexing over Sam Houston defensive backs is not showing me anything. So I don't want to completely ignore the fact that Florida has not been able to score the football at all. And Texas has a really, really good defense too. And so I don't see a world in which the Gators can score enough points to beat Texas, even if their offense is struggling again.
Yep.
So that's why I would agree with you. Texas is probably going to win this football game, but it might be ugly. And if it's ugly, then, close score games or low score games are usually close and less margin for error. So we'll see what happens. But one game that I don't know if it'll be close is Alabama-Vanderbilt. I think that this would be a perfect time for an Alabama letdown spot. You just went on the road at Georgia and you beat them when nobody was really taking you to win that game. And then next week you have another big road game at Mizzou, who's undefeated. They have a bye week this week. They're ready for you. This is a letdown spot. This is a look-ahead letdown spot. That's Josh Pate, the college football guy, always talks about games like this. Like in college football, when you just come off a big win, that's a letdown spot. But when you're also, the next week, in addition, looking ahead to a game, then it's the double look-ahead letdown spot, and that's usually when teams lose. However, because of all the narrative around this game last year and Bama losing on the road somehow, some way to Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt, and Diego Pavia is not just it's not like a Vanderbilt team where it's like they had the upset and now they've been quiet and it's like a one-hit thing. Like Vanderbilt, Pavia's been running his mouth since. Vanderbilt has been, they're a ranked team. They're undefeated this year. Like it's one of those games where Alabama's actually going to want revenge. Now they have them in their place. I think they get it in a big way.
Yeah, I agree. I was right along the same thinking this morning when we were reviewing this game. It would be so easy for us to start the same conversations in reverse. We were praising Kalen DeBoer last week to then start slandering him once again after a close win to Vanderbilt. But after that loss last year, there's a sense of vengeance, I would assume, this time around. And Alabama also figured a lot out.
I think they
figured
too.
a lot out. Ty Simpson, with a clean pocket, is the best quarterback in the country so far this season.
Yeah, is Vandy going to be able to get pressure on that Alabama O-line?
I don't think they will be.
Because
I think this could be a 3-score win for Alabama, where game day's there, they're wondering, does Diego Pavia have the juice to go on the road and get an upset? And then it's just good old-fashioned Alabama football.
Like Vandy's going to get humbled at some point.
At some point.
I know Vanderbilt is not the same. Give them tons of respect. They are not the same Vanderbilt team that we have been used to seeing.
No.
With Sarah Fuller kicking field goals, and that was the best thing they had going for them in like a decade-plus stretch. It's not the same Vanderbilt team. I'll give them that. But do you see a world in which it's a 6-0 Vanderbilt team, 2-0 in the SEC, and they just came off a road victory at Alabama?
I do not.
I do not at all.
No.
I do not at all. And that's not disrespecting them at all. I think they're going to have a great season. They're going to be a perennial bowl team, and that's a lot more than we were saying 5 years ago.
I mean, even if this is at Vanderbilt, I've got Alabama probably by 10 points, just because of how consistent they've been playing. But you combine that with being at home at Tuscaloosa, the hype of game day, Kalen DeBoer's looking to build off of the best win so far as a coach. It all just feels like Alabama all day.
And they weren't able to run the ball as successfully as they probably wanted to against Georgia, but there's a big difference between at Georgia trying to run the football and against Vanderbilt. And also, the offensive line really figured it out. I said that was going to be the key to the game. What ended up being Alabama's offensive line, instead of Georgia's pass rush being the key to the game. And they didn't have penalties, which we've seen time in and time out on the road. That was the first time last weekend that Kalen DeBoer's Alabama team did not have more penalties than the opponent. Every single game he had coached at Alabama before that, the opponent had fewer penalties than them. They were more disciplined than Georgia. That's what helped them win the football game as well. And that offensive line just has to do the same thing against Vanderbilt, and Ty Simpson's going to have all day. And when we've seen Simpson have all day, he has picked apart defenses.
Yep.
You just sent me the stat. It's gaudy numbers when he has time in the
No
pocket.
picks, over 10 touchdowns, pushing the ball down the field. He's been so good.
He can throw his hat in the ring for best college football quarterback.
Yep.
And I respect a guy who, in this world of transferring and NIL, he has waited 3 years now, his turn. And he finally gets it, and now he's showing out. After losing week 1 to Florida State, He has figured something out. He's led the team, and they get a huge win last week. I think they get it done again this week. Texas Tech Houston's another fun one, just because Houston, another team similar to Vanderbilt, where they're undefeated. But there's also an element of how good is Houston actually. They get Connor Wegman. They haven't really had a blue-chip prospect like that in a very long time. They've been another team where I don't know how they won that Oregon State game last weekend, but they did. They figured it out. They've blown out Colorado a few weeks ago. Now they get a Texas Tech team that is the favorites to win the Big 12. And this is another road game for Tech after they got it done at Utah. I think this is a similar thing where eventually Houston gets humbled too. They get that first loss. This is obviously the perfect spot for it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Houston could keep it close because I do think they're a better football team than maybe a traditionalist who would say, they're just overrated would say. I think they're still a solid group, but this is completely going to be a Texas Tech takeover. They're better at practically every position. So there's not one thing you can point at that Houston would be able to take advantage of. And Tech is simply one of the better teams in the country, and if they can get it done and continue to win, and Arizona State does, that sets the stage for maybe the two best teams in the Big 12 a couple weeks down the road going at it, and that's really where I see this trending in the Big 12 conference.
And a lot of people, including myself, were nervous about a Tech team being really solely built on transfers, new faces, new places. How is the chemistry going to work? Well, they showed that they're good at Utah. Tough environment. Beat that Utes team. They're fine on that front. They're not going to be like a Florida State situation last year where just nothing gels, nothing molds, and they lose every game. And so when they're playing another team that's got a lot of transfers, but our transfers are better, it's an obvious Tech win in my opinion. But I hope we see an upset this week. I really do.
Yes.
Because
this slate
it's not really
isn't
a slate that screams it.
Yeah.
Miami at Florida State, I think, is the last one we should talk about. It's probably the best game of the day. I think this is going to be one of those things where people write Florida State off because of what we saw last Friday night, losing to Virginia, getting upset. This is such a fun game, such a great game. This is where game day is going if FSU doesn't lose to Virginia, but they do. Now Miami has to play on the road against a Florida State team that's mad. I think this is going to be a lot closer than people think. I have Miami winning just because I'm very high on the Hurricanes, but I think if I wasn't as high on Miami as I am, this is a game where I'm going back the other way on the pendulum and saying FSU gets it done. I think this is a really close game late in the fourth quarter.
I agree. I think that if there was a game that we would pick an upset in, this would be my favorite upset, but I still do lean Miami. Looks like that spread's 4.5. I'd say Miami wins probably by a field goal, and it's down to the wire. Miami has a scare, but they still establish themselves as a top team in the country and pull out a win. The ACC is not nearly competitive enough for Miami. They might drop one game in conference play, but I don't see it being here.
And because of that, this needs to be a close game for them. They need scares. They need tough road victories like this. I think Florida State gives them one, but I do think FSU walks out of there with their second loss of the season. Any other college football stuff you want to talk about?
No, I think that's
ASU's not playing this weekend. They got a big game against Utah next week. Notre Dame hosts Boise State. Notre Dame loses the first two games of the season, and now the talk is, will their remaining schedule be strong enough where if they were to win out, there's going to be a spot for them in the playoff? I think the name brand recognition gets them there if they go 10-2, but I also think a more legitimate reason is we've already seen some carnage in college football this year, seen a lot of parity. I think that helps. I think that helps them. There might be a world where we have a couple 3-loss teams in there, and Notre Dame is not the team on the bubble at the end of the day when we're trying to figure out the 12 teams. So, but they got to win games like this handily against Boise State.
No doubt.
NFL time?
Let's do it.
All right, we debuted our, a few weeks ago, we debuted our Feast or Potato Famine segment where we pick 3 NFL teams that we think are going to feast this weekend and win games, and then we pick 3 teams that we think are going to, that might be popular picks, but we think they're going to struggle and lose.
Yeah. I want to start with last night, though. Just that game was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, as a Niner fan, I still thought the Niners had no chance at winning that football game. And, you still go in optimistically with an open mind, and you go up 14-0, and I still wasn't overly confident. But Kyle Shanahan deserves so much credit that no matter who it is under center, he finds a way. They find a way, no matter who's under center. He deserves the criticism for whatever goes on in the playoffs, 100%. But he's an offensive guru. The defense looked great. They got timely takeaways. And that is one of the more impressive Niner wins I have seen in my life.
I agree.
Because of all the factors that came along with it.
You don't have anybody really on offense. They have nobody. They don't have their quarterback. You guys don't have who, in a perfect world, would be their 3 healthy wide receivers playing. You don't have George Kittle.
It's just crazy.
You're down some O-line depth, and they still win on the road against a divisional opponent in the Rams, who that was a big game for them too.
Yeah.
There might have been some look ahead, some not taking them as seriously just because of all the injuries. I get that, but even when the Rams figured it out late in that game and they were driving consistently down the field, the fact that San Fran had the plate, like Alfred Collins punching the ball out at the end.
And for a rookie defensive tackle to make that play is ridiculous.
Yes. So that was a huge play.
And then the stop at the end.
The 4th and 1 stop at the end. It showed that was an inspired effort by the 49ers, and that is a huge. I heard Kirk say it, Kirk Herbstreit at the end of the broadcast, where it's like a win like that against a divisional rival on the road, short week, in prime time. You don't have anybody healthy. Nobody thinks you're going to win the ball game. That could help you in way more ways than you think when you are healthy down the stretch, and I agree with that.
I had a problem, and Sean McVay took full responsibility for this. So if he was hearing what I am saying right now, he would 100% agree. But when Matthew Stafford is dominating the Niners, and the throws he makes, the 1-2 to Atwell was ridiculous. To not let him throw the football on 4th and 1 if you decide to go for it, knowing that Kyren Williams is the most susceptible running back to turning the ball over in the NFL for the past 2 years. He has 7 fumbles. That leads the NFL. You have to have him throw the football. Design a play. Sean McVay is an offensive genius, but you have to allow your best player to throw the ball in the biggest moment, because then you go home at night, you're laying in bed thinking about it, saying, what if? You don't say what if Stafford throws an incompletion, because you can live with that. I gave it to Matthew Stafford. I made the right decision.
Yeah.
But giving it to Kyren Williams, they sent an all-out blitz. It just was a poor decision in the moment, and it might haunt the Rams in a game they had to have.
Well, and you can make that argument in both the big moments, the fumble on the goal line and then also the 4th and 1. Same argument applies to each, because I get you're trying to, with the fumble, I get you're trying to run the clock out and you score the touchdown to win the game and then you don't get the ball back. But a touchdown, even with a minute 30 left, minute 20 left, gives the Niners the ball back with 1 timeout left, and they can't kick a field goal to tie it. It would have been a 4-point deficit for the 49ers. And you have to have the hobbled backup quarterback and company try to do it again against the Rams.
Yep.
And they needed a touchdown to win. I mean, you got to like your chances in that situation. So I agree. I think if you're worried about scoring too quickly, that was flawed logic in that situation because of what you're making the other offense do. And then, same thing, especially on the 4th and 1 after Kyren just fumbled. Corum had fumbled earlier in the game on the toss. Like, just throw the football. Stafford had almost 400 passing yards in this game. He's unreal.
Yeah.
You throw the football. You're smart enough to think about the play that Alabama used to ice Georgia, where everybody thinks you're running the football to the left or running a play to the left, and Ty Simpson just spins around and throws a easy completion to the right. Sean McVay is a genius. He could have come up with something like that where Stafford gets an easy completion.
Yeah.
He's a guy that doesn't need easy completions. So I agree. You don't run the football in either one of those spots. They did. They pay the price. They lose a game they absolutely should not have lost. Now the Niners are 4-1 despite all the injuries.
Pretty crazy.
You just gotta when you get back healthy, you just gotta stay healthy, and that'll be the biggest test for them.
And the schedule is the easiest in the NFL.
Yep.
I mean,
There
these are their hardest games right now. At the Rams, next week at the Buccaneers. So
that's when last year's injuries and how bad that season was is helping this year's team. Because you guys do not play anybody.
Exactly.
Feast or famine time?
Let's do it.
You want to start with your first feast pick?
I would love to. My first feast pick is the Indianapolis Colts at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. Colts are coming off a loss, but they're a legit football team. Shay and I sat here on last week's show. We said if they compete with the Rams, if they go all the way toe-to-toe till the end, we're going to consider them legit. And that's what I'm doing now. They're back at home. They're playing a Raiders team that has looked awful. I think their defense can take advantage of Geno Smith. Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor have been dynamic. This screams a get-right game back at home for Indy, and I'm high on the Colts to move to 4-1.
I think that's a game they win as well. They need to win. And I think before going back to the Rams thing, before that game, it was sort of a win. Are the Colts going to drop when they shouldn't? When are they going to get checked a little bit, exposed a little bit? And I don't know if that's going to come. I don't know if they're a team that is susceptible to those kind of games because they compete against LA. They've looked great in their other 3 games. So obviously, the Raiders they play some bad football and some bad moments to play bad football in. They should have won that Bears game last week, and they didn't. They might be a team that's just withering away the rest of the season on a downhill decline. Now they go on the road to Indianapolis. That's a tough place to play when the Colts are good. And so I agree with you. I think that's a good feast pick. My first one is the Arizona Cardinals, and I think this is a 7.5-point favorite. It's a big favorite. It's a big spread just like yours, but I think the Cardinals more than cover in this football game. The Titans, I don't think they're bad enough to just get blown out and game in and game out, but their coaching is terrible. Callahan is not a good coach.
No.
And I had this conversation the other day with somebody. I think Cam Ward has the goods potentially to be a good quarterback in the NFL, but it's not going to happen with his coaching staff. He has to have another coaching staff to be good. And so the Cardinals, last time we saw them was 2 Thursday night footballs ago. So they've had a ton of time off. They're healthy. The defense especially is healthy. It's James Conner's hurt and Trey Benson's hurt, but the defense is really healthy. And I think they're going to make life very hard on Cam Ward. And the offense seemed to be clicking. I'm worried about the running game now that Benson's hurt too, but the offense was clicking at the end of that Seahawks loss with Kyler and his receivers. Marv is making some huge catches. Yeah. And so I think the passing attack will be too much, and that's where Tennessee's been burnt a little bit too, is through the year. So I think the Cardinals have a emphatic victory after 2 crappy losses where they lose on the field goal to the 49ers, and then they lose to another divisional opponent right at the end after coming back and clawing back into that ball game. They start 2-0, then they lose 2 heartbreakers like that. I think this is we had an extended period of time off. Now we get to play the Titans. I think they win by a lot.
I like it. My second feast pick, I've got the Detroit Lions on the road at Cincinnati. It is does that say 6.5 or 9.5?
9.5.
9.5 point spread. Detroit has been clicking on all cylinders after their slow start. Their offense is phenomenal. And until the Cincinnati Bengals figure out their quarterback situation with Jake Browning, every single game is going to look grim. It's going to be hard to pick them against anybody after their recent stretch and some of the losses that they've had. The Detroit Lions offense is still elite. And although the Bengals pass rush isn't the worst in the world, it's still not a good defense at all. They're going to be able to get pressure with their front seven versus that Bengals atrocious offensive line.
Yeah, that's
where
that game gets ugly.
Exactly. When I look at the entire picture, I don't envision a world where Detroit loses this football game.
Well, it's just the O-line makes this hard, but Zach Taylor is a good enough offensive mind to figure something out for Jake Browning to have success.
Surely.
And you saw flashes of that the last time Burrow got hurt and Browning had to come in. And you saw flashes of that in that Jacksonville game that they won when Burrow went down halfway through. They got to get back to that. They're at home. Maybe this is the time against the Lions defense that's vulnerable at points in the secondary, but where they're not vulnerable and where the Cincinnati Bengals definitely are is exactly that. Lions getting to the quarterback, and Bengals allow that a lot.
Yep.
So Jake Browning is going to be under duress this entire ball game, and that's why I think Detroit wins another one. My second feast pick was the Seattle Seahawks at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Buccaneers drop another one. They're just too injured still. I like the Seattle team. They're at home. Tampa, the injuries are mounting. They'll have no Mike Evans. They'll have no Bucky Irving. Seattle's defense is the best part of their team. I just think the Buccaneers struggle to score points, and I think the Seahawks win a kind of an ugly game.
Yeah, I actually had the Buccaneers winning this game.
Okay.
But that was more just Baker over Sam Darnold, and as you mentioned, 2 defenses that are pretty good. I thought it was also going to be sloppy, and I'm not fully bought into the Seattle Seahawks yet. I thought I saw enough last week, Tampa versus Philly, to pick them on the road, but I completely get that perspective. Seattle, more healthy, better overall unit at the moment, but Tampa impressed me enough last week for me to pick them here.
This is a spread that just keeps growing in the Seahawks' favor too. So sharps are obviously on it. It's the injury stuff. Tampa's just decimated.
And then my third feast pick is let's see here. My third feast pick is the Buffalo Bills versus the New England Patriots.
I had this on my famine list for the Bills.
Really? You think they're going to drop this one?
No, but I think the Patriots are going to cover. We've seen Bills struggle in games they should be blowing out teams the last 2 weeks. They struggled against the Dolphins. They struggled against the Saints. The Saints had at one point in the fourth quarter had a shot to win that game.
They were there.
Or at least go ahead. This is a Buffalo team that I've said it on our show that I think they have not an easy obviously, but they have a route, like an envisionable route
to go
undefeated.
Yep.
So I do not think they're going to lose this game, but it's a primetime spot against a divisional opponent. What if it's similar to last night where San Fran keeps it close? I think New England keeps it close, and at some point I probably got to quit this Patriots team, but they've shown flashes of that offense being really successful at moving the football. And if their defense can just hold Josh Allen to a manageable amount of points, I think the Patriots are in this late. So this was not a famine pick in the sense that I think the Bills will drop this game. But I do think the Patriots make this very interesting.
They're a much better football team than the New Orleans Saints, and they gave the Bills some trouble. I just worry about how can Drake May play on the road in that environment on prime time. We haven't seen, and now with a Patriots team that has much higher expectations, Stephon Diggs is returning to Buffalo. There's a lot of fun stuff going into this one. But although it was a feast pick for me, I did align with a lot of the same thoughts. I don't think it's going to be a blowout win for Buffalo, but I do think they're going to remain undefeated.
Yeah, I would say so too. Chiefs are my last feast pick. I think the offense just figured something out against Baltimore. The Chiefs did not blow anybody out last year. They really didn't. They had a couple, they blew out the Steelers. They beat the Steelers handily on Christmas Day. They had a pretty handed victory over the Saints. It was like one of those sloppy-ish double-digit wins. But there were no games where we emphatically beat a team like the Ravens last year. And I know Baltimore banged up defensively. Lamar Jackson exits that game. But the offense just moved the ball down the field with ease every single time. And even a banged-up Baltimore defense is probably better in totality than a New York Giants defense.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs struggled to score on the New York Giants. So I think the offense is finally finding its footing. First game of Xavier Worthy, there's no coincidence there. And I think that after the Jaguars coming off a huge win against the 49ers, this is where they get let down. This is another primetime game for the Chiefs. It seems like they're playing primetime every week. I think Kansas City gets it done. I think it's another convincing win on the road against Jacksonville. I think there's a reason that the Jaguars team that has shown a lot of reasons for people to be high on them, even at home, they're not getting the hook. Chiefs are a 3.5-point favorite on the road.
I'm also on the Chiefs this weekend. They look phenomenal against Baltimore, and this is an easier opponent. Yes, it's on the road, but could be a pretty obvious letdown spot for Jacksonville at home.
Potato Famine picks?
Let's do it.
I already had one with the Buffalo Bills. Who you got?
Okay. My first Potato Famine pick is actually, and I'm going to keep doing this every week, I feel like, and it might bite me in the butt again, but I think the Eagles are going to lose to the Broncos this week.
I almost had this as well.
And it just came down for me to two teams that have really good defenses. So they're going to play the same brand of football. I feel like the Broncos are the same version of the Eagles, just worse.
Yeah.
So they could win that same style of run the ball, stop Jalen Hurts from any big plays. And I trust Bo Nix. I think that he's still waiting for that big game to prove that the Denver Broncos are legit. They got all the preseason hype after making the postseason. This is the game that reminds everybody that Denver is still here. They're still a team that is going to make the playoffs in the AFC, and they need one of them. Philly's only favored by 4.5. It's going to be close, and I just think Philly's going to drop a game eventually. They're not going to go undefeated. They're 4-0. They should have lost a couple of games already. This is the one that they finally lose.
I think this Eagles strategy of trying to win football games without doing anything offensively, especially it's going to come back to bite. That week 1 game where they beat the Cowboys and it was way closer than it should have been, and they just ran the football. They didn't let Jalen Hurts throw it at all, and they come away with the victory. To me, that was okay, we know we can score enough points doing that against a crappy Dallas defense. We're going to save some stuff for next week against the Chiefs. But then they beat the Chiefs in the same way. And then when that wasn't working against the Rams, they all of a sudden started throwing the football. But I don't think that's going to work every time. I don't think they're going to just magically, now we're going to be able to start throwing the football. We just saw Mac Jones dice up the LA secondary. So against a secondary that's a lot better than the Rams one, which the Broncos one is. What if this Broncos defense forces Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley and the Eagles offensive minds over there we can't just run the football, play in and play out, and beat this team like we have been beating teams. We're going to have to throw it, and then it's not going to be as easy of a task to try to get into rhythm halfway through a game throwing the football against this Denver secondary. So I think in that sense, the Broncos match up well. It'll just be can Bo Nix and company score enough points on the road.
Not having Kellen Moore so far for Philadelphia has shown.
Yes.
It has shown in a big way. Because I actually just read an article this morning about how their offensive efficiency has decreased drastically, And they're also not trusting Jalen Hurts nearly as much to throw the ball down the field. It's been, hey, we can win the game on the ground because we have Saquon Barkley, we have this elite offensive line. But at some point, your quarterback's going to have to make those throws. You're going to have to show that trust.
They've been really one-dimensional, not dynamic at all.
And it's been weird when you have a star receiver in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith's phenomenal. The core is good. Goddard's been really good. But the offense hasn't been nearly as good.
This Denver defense in general is just, they're going to sniff anything out. Like if they think you're just going to run the football, they are capable of stopping that. If they think you have to throw the football, they are capable of stopping that. I think the Broncos' defensive matchup works well here.
Yep.
It's just they got to score enough points. So I almost had the Eagles as a famine pick as well for that reason. One of the famine picks I had were Dolphins on the road against Carolina.
I'm on Carolina.
I think this is a game they lose. I think the Panthers get it done. Just saw the Dolphins get back some good juju with a win in primetime against the division rival in the Jets, but you lose Tyreek Hill. Your offense takes another hit. It's not an offense that can really afford to take hits. And so we've seen flashes, not a brilliance, but we've seen flashes of the Panthers actually able to score points. We saw it late in the game against the Cardinals. We saw it in the win over the Falcons. I think if we get that, which they're playing the Dolphins, not necessarily a murderer's row defense, I think the Panthers get it done at home, while the Dolphins try to figure out now how do we move the football without Tyreek Hill.
I'm all on the Panthers, too. They're my favorite home underdog of the week. This is an obvious spot, I believe, with Bryce Young and Tua Tagovailoa. They're in the same tier. Carolina just got embarrassed, too. They're having this up and down season of what are they? I think we're all kind of wondering that. And Miami's just so bad, and they're so banged up. Carolina.
I think they're a bad football team that they're going to get a couple wins in games like this.
Yes. And I think this could be a game for Tedero McMillan, too, to break out. We haven't really seen it yet, but the Dolphins' secondary has been bad for the past couple of years, and just holistically as a unit. Bryce Young's going to be airing the ball down the field, and they're going to have some success.
Who's your last famine pick?
My last famine pick, or would this be the second famine?
Oh, yeah, this is your second one. My apologies.
My second famine pick is, I think the Commanders are going to beat the Chargers on the road. Jaden Daniels is a full go this week. Shay and I are both skeptical about Los Angeles because of no Joe Alt, no Rashawn Slater, etc., etc. The Commanders with Marcus Mariota have still been competing. They haven't looked terrible. And getting Jaden Daniels back, I think, will work wonders. It feels to me like the 1 week he's back, the first week, he reminds everybody that he's here as well. And Washington's a good football team. I don't think they're going to make the postseason, but with how tattered the Chargers are, this feels like a game where I was confident in the road team going into LA and getting it done.
Jackson Dart showed that running quarterbacks can be a little bit of a thorn in the side for the Chargers defense. This could be a situation where Daniels does the same thing. I think I'm on the Chargers at home, bouncing back after losing a game they shouldn't have lost, because the Washington defense, I think, is way less equipped to make the offensive line injuries show like the Giants were able to do.
Their pass rush is not that good.
Correct. So I think the Chargers get it done, but I see where you're coming from. My last famine pick was the Dallas Cowboys, in a similar spot to what I just said with the Dolphins, going on the road to a team that's not good. And they're 1.5 point favorites, just like the Dolphins were 1.5 point favorites. I think the Cowboys just had, we've seen blow up performances, and then we've seen them crash afterwards. And there's no reason that you should have walked away out of that Green Bay game with anything but a loss.
Yep.
They get the tie. Their offense looked fantastic. I think this is the crash we see. They're still going to be without CeeDee Lamb. I think New York's their defense hasn't been great, but I think this is just going to be one of those weird games where the Cowboys, they crash and burn again.
Yeah. I have the Cowboys, but I was thinking similarly to you. It's not one I'm confident in. I thought their offense showed me enough against the Packers to pick them against the Jets.
I don't think the Jets are bad enough to be 0-5.
I don't either.
They're bad, but I don't think they're that bad.
Yeah, they're not that bad.
I thought they were going to beat Miami. I thought New York was going to finish above Miami in the standings this year. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, but who knows? The Jets win this one, it helps. So.
Yeah. And then my final famine pick, I don't know if you can even consider it a famine pick when they're missing their starting quarterback, but I think the Texans are going to go on the road and beat Baltimore this week. C.J. Stroud And the Texans played their most complete game of football last week, shutout performance. And with how Baltimore is trending, they do this, as you talked about a couple of weeks ago. They start off a little slower than normal, and then they'll pick it up when it matters most, when Lamar Jackson is back on the field. The Texans just have enough offensively. Their pass rush is good to make Cooper rush and not be as effective. I've got Houston.
Texans have to win this football game.
They do.
They have.
If they don't win this football game, especially in an AFC South that might be up for grabs if the Colts start to fall off, these are games that you circle when there's no Lamar Jackson.
You're supposed to be the favorites of that division. The Colts and Jaguars have looked far and away better teams than you guys.
Oh yeah.
You get a shot. You get a shot to play one of your toughest games all year against a backup quarterback. Like on the road against Baltimore, even if Houston was firing on all cylinders, they probably don't win that game. So now it's Cooper Rush.
Yes.
You're getting a gift there. You started 0-3, trying to call back. This is perfect spot for them.
Yep.
To have a game like this against Cooper Rush. So
Gotta have it.
They gotta have it. Gotta have it. All right.
We basically knocked out the whole slate.
I know. We usually agree on a lot more stuff than that.
It's a really good slate. We were talking about how Saturdays is not as great for college football, but I love this slate for the NFL. I love Buccaneers, Seahawks. I really like Commanders, Chargers. I like the primetime game, Patriots, Bills. And then Monday Night Football with Chiefs, Jags. That's really interesting.
I think Broncos, Eagles is fun too.
Broncos, Eagles is
I think
great.
Giants, Saints could be that's a toss-up.
Yeah, there's a lot. So it's going to be a good viewing experience for all you on Sunday. Taking in the football, we just had that phenomenal game on Thursday night, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
I don't think I got anything else. We'll
don't
have
either.
some NHL a little bit coming up. I know it starts next week, and then the NBA is in a couple of weeks. So the fall, it's the best.
Time of the year where everything's overlapping. It's fun.
It really is the best. So I think that's all we got. Let's do it. Cool. We'll see y'all next time. Thank you for tuning in.